we just marvel at what has happened to us. This is incredible. My life has literally been transformed.
Sheryl, how did you find Carnivore?
The Dave Mack signature question. I love it. I have been lying awake for the last 3 nights, asking that question in my head and thinking how I'm going to answer it. And what I discovered was, no matter how I answered it, all roads lead to Carnivore. It doesn't matter where I start, what I say, it's all going to lead me to Carnivore. And it basically was watching YouTube, started Keto in July of 2022. And, just looking for channels for inspiration, for encouragement, and found Dr. Ken Berry. And from there, it was just an absolute onslaught of probably 80% of my YouTube channels, my subscriptions are Carnivore. It's just pretty much the majority of the content that I watch, just because I enjoy it so much. I learn so much. I'm sure, many more people you've interviewed that will be much more schooled and knowledgeable than I am. But what I do bring to the table is absolutely irrefutable proof that my life has transformed because of Carnivore. And I think that's what we all bring. We have unique stories, but there's a sameness in the community. And that's what I like, that we've got that connection with the healing and some of us with the weight loss. So I feel like it all started back I was a child in the 60s, a teenager in the 70s, and a young mom in the 80s. And my mom was always very thin, very fit, but I was a pudgy child, and that embarrassed her. I love my mom. She's gone now. She actually passed away from Alzheimer's, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But I loved my mom, but I knew I was an embarrassment to her. And I wasn't even, boy, when you look at overweight kids in the 60s, it is nothing like these poor kids nowadays. I mean, my sister and I, our hearts just break when we see these little kids carrying around all of that weight that's just going to destroy their lives. But at any rate, I had skin conditions starting in the 3rd grade. I had my feet and my hands. I had to wear house shoes to school, or slippers, whatever you call them. And I had to wear white cotton gloves to school. So that really kind of singles you out as a kid. And back then there was no politeness or whatever. Kids just said whatever they thought. There was no sensitivity training or whatever. So I just kind of engaged into it and made it into a game, and that seemed to help me cope. But my feet were so bad that the skin was literally rotting off my feet, and it smelled like dead flesh. When my mom took me to the doctor, they told her, and this is just me repeating what I was told my whole life growing up, that this was a disease that the soldiers coming home from Korea had, called jungle rot. And she must have contracted it when she was pregnant with me, and it lay dormant until I turned 10. And that's when it, kind of manifested. They were able to get that under control within a few months. And then I had hands, these little bubbles that would burst. They were like little tiny boils on my hands, and they would burst open, and the skin would just ooze. And it was really, wasn't fun for a 10-year-old. Once they got that under control, I didn't have more skin issues until high school, when I got athlete's foot. And then I had more of the bubbles come back, and those were there for like a good 10 years in my 20s and 30s. And then the most recent outbreak, not on my feet, but I sent you the pictures of my psoriasis on my face and my hands. That started when I hit menopause. So I really believe that was partly hormonal for sure. I had a terrible diet then, but I do believe hormones played a role in it. But I was putting on steroid cream every single day, multiple times a day. It never did any good whatsoever. I've gone to multiple dermatologists. I went to one here. My family and I, my sister and her sons and my sons, moved out here to Tennessee in 2018. So in 2019, I could see a new one was starting on my left hand pinky. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the dermatologist, see if it's always idiopathic. Everything they find is idiopathic. So basically, we don't know what's doing it. And they took a biopsy of my knuckle, and it came back undetermined. So basically I've been living with it. And you saw the pictures, my knuckles were swollen and cracked and bleeding, and in the little creases in your fingers, they were all cracked open. And I type on a computer all day. I'm work in HR, so I'm on the computer all day long. And that was incredibly painful to do that. But, it's cleared up. I'd probably say 80%. It used to have it all on my face. You saw that. It was just covered on my face, my ears, so great improvement there. I haven't reached the desired final result, but I'm really confident that I'll get there eventually. I know Dr. Berry likes to say we need to have some vitamin P patience, and I spent 55 years eating the standard American diet and losing weight and gaining weight and losing weight and gaining weight. So I did a lot of damage to my body. And so when I get a little anxious and think, oh, I wish this would just go away completely, I stop and I think, it might take a few years. That's fine, because it's not embarrassing anymore. I was wearing white cotton gloves because people would just naturally, and I think it's just normal. It's not anyone trying to be rude. It's just, you see something that's out of the ordinary and you're looking at it. You can't avoid it. So I tried to hide it as best I could, but it just feels so good to be healed as far as it was. And, skin disorders wasn't the only thing. I sent you that long list, and I'm going to just kind of look at it real quick, because that's the crux of everything that was healed. Anxiety. I just had crippling anxiety. I mean, I was able to function. I was a high functioning person with anxiety because I'm a very social person. So that kind of balanced out the anxiety. But, people that would know me for a while, and I would tell them I'm a really shy person, they would say, oh, you're not shy. You're the life of the party. You're not shy at all. And I am incredibly, I will sit in the distance and I will watch, and I will, not anymore, but would watch and wait to make sure it was safe for, someone wasn't going to reject me. Someone was going to, they were going to like me. My sister is much more like our dad. She's much more out there and just friendly, and she talked to strangers. And I'm definitely doing that now, but that was a long road to that. But that is just completely cleared up, that anxiety. Lifelong back pain. I've had back pain since I was pregnant with my oldest son. And when I started in July, sorry if I'm jumping all over the place, but as they pop in, I want to say them. July of 2022, when I actually started keto in July. And by the beginning of October, I had found Carnivore with Dr. Berry. And I went, I'm going to give that a try. I really don't like having to, you trying to make the keto recipes and fixing the dinners that kind of, and there's nothing wrong with keto, but for me, it was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to take all this time buying ingredients and looking at recipes and fixing things up. So I thought, I'm going to try beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. I love all those things. I've always loved those things. So I'm going to give that a try. And boy, it was like a shot in the arm. Immediately, I was like, yeah, this is what I needed. This is what, and I've never looked back. It's been 19 months. And I have no desire whatsoever to veer off course or to have the foods I used to eat. Now, I will say there's a mental component that every once in a while, and it's usually an emotional trigger, where, oh man, we used to have strawberry shortcake every summer. Our dad would barbecue and we'd have strawberry shortcake. And, I'll look at things and I'll kind of longingly think, oh yeah, those were good days. But as soon as my mind does the computation that, it's not good and it would be horrible if you started eating it again, then I'm immediately off of it. So I don't linger there. And really most days it doesn't happen at all. But I had the back pain in July. I've lost 110 pounds. So I was 110 pounds heavier. I had just a few months prior started using a walker and a cane because I couldn't maneuver walking more than a few steps. I would stand at my kitchen sink to do my dishes. And I would literally cry because my back just felt like it was breaking in half. It was burning. My legs were burning. I used to have incredible hip and leg pain, sciatica. And it was, when it would hit, man, you can't find relief for that. I mean, it's that bad. One of the motivators or my whys for starting this was my knees are bone on bone osteoarthritis, which I just watched a Sean Baker video today with I can't remember his guest's name, but they were talking about the joints, osteoarthritis being like a diabetes of the joints. I'd never heard that before, and I don't know how terribly accurate it is, but I trust Sean Baker. I think he's a good source of information. So I was like going, wow, okay, well that explains a lot, and it explains why. I couldn't stand for more than a few minutes. I couldn't walk for more than a few minutes. My life had basically become, I would go to church on Sunday. I would be in pain the entire time because the pews were hard and my back would burn and my shoulders would burn. And it was really hard concentrating because I was in such pain. And then I couldn't stand to talk to people. So I had to sit there. People, I have a lovely, lovely church family. So they've been incredibly supportive to me, and I love it, each and every one of them. In fact, I texted a group of my friends at church and said, "Hey, this is happening. I'm so excited. Pray for me. Pray that I don't make a complete fool of myself, because that would be, take it down, take it down." They were all very accommodating, very, very loving. And, but I couldn't participate in anything. I'd have to immediately go home, sit in my recliner, and my recliner was the only chair anywhere, because I could recline it up, where I would get any relief whatsoever, any kind of, freedom from the pain. When I was first diagnosed with the osteoarthritis back in 2014, so it was 10 years ago, I just woke up one day, couldn't walk, and my left leg, or the right leg, it's the right leg because the right leg's the worst leg. And my sister went with me to the emergency room on this. It was so swollen, I couldn't walk. They drained so much yellow fluid off of it. And that's when they did the x-rays and said, you have osteoarthritis. When I went, my intention was lose the weight, get knee replacements, which I didn't want to do. Right now, I'm holding firm where I'm at to see what happens, because I can stand now and I can walk. Yeah, I have pain if I go too long, but it's not sustained pain. It's usually just when I get up and I've got the pain going through my leg, but it works its way out very quickly. But when I went to the orthopedic surgeon in July of 2022, I had just been on keto like a week. And he was willing to do the surgery at that weight. And I said, I'm really not comfortable with that. But when he looked at the x-rays, the first thing he said when he walked in the room was, "Sweetheart, I don't know how you're walking." And so I said, well, it's not easy. There's pain with every step. And so, just doing it because I have to do it. Certainly not doing it for pleasure, just where I have to, going to the bathroom and doing my dishes and stuff like that. But I went back to him a year later, and I had already lost at that point like 80 pounds. And he was willing to schedule the surgery, but my company changed insurance. So we had to wait until they were accredited with the orthopedic surgeon. And I'm just kind of going, I'm not sure I even want to do this. I mean, it has improved so much that the bit of pain I do have, I'm kind of going, I might be willing to deal with that and see what kind of more healing my body will do over the next couple of years. So that's kind of where I'm at now with my knees. Let's see. Oh, catastrophic thinking. Oh my gosh. My sister could attest to this, because she was always my sounding board on all of my catastrophic thoughts. And I just would go, whatever subject popped into my mind, it would take me down a rabbit trail to the absolute worst possible conclusion. And that was just, that's just what I did. And I didn't sleep well because that's what I would lay awake. I'd get sleepy. I'd turn the lights off and get ready to snuggle up for the night. And then bink, my brain would just fire up and start thinking, well, what about this? And what about that? And, what if you die? And what if you, all of these just horrible thoughts going through my head. And there was a lot of guilt with that as well, because I am a Christian and I trust in the providence and the sovereignty of God. And so that kind of feeling was in conflict with what I knew to be the truth. So I was always kind of trying to identify it as a spiritual problem. But, since going on this diet, I realized that, hey, you know what? I don't think it was. I think it was the food that was doing that. So that has really stopped. I had chronic body aches. I mean, my body hurt not just my knees, my whole body. I always felt like I was coming down with the flu. That was the best way I could describe it. Just that, that weak, shaky, kind of flu feeling that you get. And the brain fog was just, our mom, I'll go back to our mom. I say our, because my she's my next door neighbor, and we're like, she's my best friend. She's a sister in the Lord, and she's my sister by blood. So I feel like I've been triple blessed with her. But our mom was on statins for years, and she was a type 2 diabetic. And, we didn't know as much when she came down with Alzheimer's. As we know now, we long to be able to go back and see if there was some way to save her health. But she really suffered from, in the beginning, when they know they're losing their mind, that's the hardest part, because they know what's going to happen to them. And that was just heartbreaking. She told my sister one day in the store that, I'm going to forget you. And my sister told her, but we're not going to forget you. So it was just really hard watching her decline like that. And just all the stages that they go through with Alzheimer's. There's just like, a whole myriad of things that they go through, the sundowners, the anger, the violence, it's all there. And our dad passed away at 61 of pancreatic cancer, which was so young, but he drank, and he and my mom both loved the carbs and the sugar and all that kind of stuff. And, I think of Jeff DeProsperous and, how he's, thriving on carnivore. And it's like our dad died 30 years ago. So it's not like, we just missed the window or whatever, but you can't help but go back there. But when we talk about, my sister and I talk about comparing the kind of deaths they had, we have said hands down, give me cancer. I'll take cancer. It's a withering, painful death at times, but you still know everybody. You can still have relationship with them. And he was pretty coherent up until, just a few weeks before he passed, when they were just giving him morphine to manage the pain. But he had told us at one point, he said, if I had it to do over again, I would never have done the chemotherapy, because it was never going to be a life-saving thing. It was always going to be just, let's prolong your life. But the life he had was so awful that what he just said, why, what was the point of this? He spent the 4 months he might've gained, he spent in bed languishing, rather than just letting it take its course and having, more quality time with his family and his grandkids. So those two stories are probably the ones that hit the hardest for us, but we're really grateful. My sister and I are very grateful that the Lord brought us to carnivore. I remember praying just desperate prayers the last 2 years from 20 to 22, and just daily, just crying out to God and saying, Lord, I don't know what your plan is for all of this. I don't know what your intention is for all of this, but I submit to your will, not my will, your will be done. And that's not always an easy thing to say or do. But I was convinced that if this was the path the Lord wanted me on, he would sustain me and he would see me through until I was with him. So I was just going, Lord, I'm in so much pain. I'm so desperate. And then my sister went on Verta at her work, because she was a type 2 diabetic. She's completely reversed her diabetes. She had 30 years, couldn't do a thing about it. No one ever told her, hey, stop eating sugar and carbs, and that might help. So this program at her work was called Verta, which is a low carb program. So we both started off kind of keto-ish. And then when we had discovered Carnivore, we're like, okay, yeah, we're all in. And her oldest son and his wife and her youngest son kind of joined in with us. Now, my sister and I were 25 years older than them, so we had a lot more cleaning up to do, so to speak. But we've had a lot of success with that, doubling down on watching all the carnivore channels. Carrie, Bill Knott. I love watching Bill Knott and Limitless Lindy. What inspiring journeys they are on, and that's the thing about the carnivore community that I really love. It doesn't matter if you only had 10 pounds to lose, or you just wanted to get rid of that rash, or if you had 500 pounds to lose and a plethora of health conditions. Everyone is so happy for you. Everyone is really rooting for you, in your corner. And I really appreciate that kind of support. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I know God has arranged it this way, but I listen to some people who are so, they get such negative comments and, rudeness. And the people in my life, my boss, well, he was my boss for 5 years. I've recently switched to a new boss. In fact, I just had a call with him today and with my new boss today, told them both what I was doing. They're so proud of me. They're so happy for me. So that's and all my coworkers, that's my work environment. And then all my family at church, they've all just like right on board with me. So I really have not experienced a lot of negative interactions with people at all. And truthfully, if I did, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. I mean, I know this is fixing me. I know this is healing me. And my life is already 1,000 times better than it was 19 months ago. So there would be no reason to not do this anymore. So I'm really fortunate that, I have all of these people in my corner and all these people in my life to support me and encourage me. And I was watching Dr. Berry this morning with it's called the medical, what is the research? Medical research is broken or something like that. And, I was just like listening going, I think we're really on a paradigm shift in the nutrition and health space. I just, and Dr. Berry was talking about this on the call, and he was saying, we're never going to destroy the guards, the current institutions. That's not going to happen. What we're going to do, we're going to raise up pillars alongside of them. And that's where we're going to find success and be able to reach people. And I see that being done so beautifully and really, really increasing in popularity, not because it's a fad diet, but because it is true and it works. And, just having that confirmation that, yeah, we're on the right path. This is really going to be something. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime. I sure hope I do. I look at people like Ken Berry and Nisha raising Beckett and Bonnie Blue with, as little carnivores. And I think, I would love to watch them grow up and see what their potential is, because, there hasn't been a generation like that in a long time, not in my lifetime. So I just really encourage any young moms and young dads that are doing this. My nephew and his wife, try to get their son who's 13 and their daughter who's 10 to eat as much carnivore as possible. And my great niece, she's 10 years old, and man, when we go out to eat, she gets a steak. So she's already got a taste for the steak. So anyways, that's kind of the main crux of where it all started. I've got a much more list of depression. My eyesight actually improved. I've been wearing glasses since I was 12. I'm not wearing them right now, but I've been wearing them since I was 12. And, your eyesight just gets progressively worse. And that was like 52 years ago. So, or 53 years ago now. So when I went last August, he said, "Oh, your eyesight has improved from your last exam." I said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "My eyesight has never improved And he goes, yeah. He goes, your eyes are really healthy and your vision is improved. He said, well, what are you eating? I told him carnivore, and he told me that I should eat carrots. So I just said, yeah. I'm not gonna convert my ophthalmologist in 5 minutes in the chair, but the seed was planted. He's going to remember carnivore if someone else says it. But I had my gallbladder removed in 2003, and that was one of my concerns. Was I hear people saying, "Oh, you've really got to accommodate for all of the extra fat, and if you don't have a gallbladder, and maybe it's the fact that I had it yanked out 21 years ago. I don't know. I've never had a problem with the fat. I never had a problem with it, and I love fat. I have a ribeye probably 3 or 4 days out of the week, and I fry up that fat until it's nice and crispy, and just pop them in my. I just love
And
it.
no negative effects.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. So, that was a nice surprise, because I really do love the fat. So that was a nice surprise that I didn't have that problem. I did have, however, when I first started, one of what I think, at least in hearing other people's stories, one of the worst case of keto flu I've heard of. I was down for the count for 4 weeks. I mean, so bad that I was if it could happen, I was almost feeling worse than I did before I started. I even told my sister at week 4, I said, you know what? I don't know if I can keep doing this. If this is the way I'm going to feel, I don't know if I can keep doing this. But I thought there's a scripture that talks about, when Jesus is giving hard news to the disciples, and he asks Peter, are you going to go away too? And Peter says, Lord, where am I going to go? You're the one with words of eternal life. And so I kind of correlated it to that, going, yeah, what else am I going to do? I have tried every diet under the sun. They've worked temporarily, but none of them to the point where I could say, oh, I could do this for the rest of my life. I get excited when I talk about my meat at church with my friends. And I have one friend in particular that loves her vegetables. And she just gets a kick out of how, when I start talking about ribeyes and, my power bowls, which is a Carrie and Emma thing from Homestead How, I love those things. So when I start talking, I just light up. I mean, I can just almost feel how the meat makes me feel, just talking about it. And one of the things I was going to say, when Dr. Berry is talking about the pillars, coming up alongside the old institutions, I was thinking, it's really like, you see an old tree that's dying, and then you see this young sprout, this young life that's coming up near it, that's going to eventually replace that old gnarly tree. It's going to die, and it's good. So I really hope that that's where we're heading. I really do. I can't go out anymore. And I know Carrie talks about this a lot. I can't go out. I'm sure the same is for you and all the people you've had on. You cannot, it's like the blinders have been taken away. You can't go out in the world and see people. Children especially just kill me. It just kills me. Because I was a chubby kid, so I know what that feels like. But just to go out into the world and see you can just see the ill health on them. I mean, you can just, it's so sad, and no judgment at all. I don't feel like, you should do this and you'd get it together. Not at all. I'm thinking, I wish I could approach this stranger that I don't know and say, hey, I've got an answer for you. Try this,
I'm confiscating this shopping cart.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. It's one of those things, like I said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to ignorance once the truth has been revealed to you. It's like, I know we talk a lot about, the Matrix, and, there's a lot of analogies with that. But it's true, when you come out of the Matrix and you see, and I have to say, I turned 65 last August, and when I was growing up, all of the institutions, health and government and corporations, even, there was a respect for them. Corporations took care of their employees, and the government, wasn't corrupt like it is now. And the health, doctors were, eager learners and partnering with you. Now everything is just throw a pill at it. I can't tell you how many prescriptions doctors have wanted to give me. When I went in for, one of the big things I wanted to tell you about, in 2009, I was not quite 51. It was a few months before I turned 51. I had it would just seem to have come out of the blue, where I had this intense stomach pain, and I was at work, and I had to go home, and it just continued. I couldn't eat anything but mashed potatoes for months. I lost 45 pounds, not because I was trying to do it or doing it in a healthy way. I couldn't eat anything without my stomach feeling like there was a brick in it, and it was so painful. And my doctor ran every test. He ran a lot of tests. I went through a lot of tests. And when he got to the last one, which was a test for gastroparesis, and they took that test, and he told me going into it, he said, if this comes back normal, there's nothing we can do for you. So it came back normal. And I just thought, okay, there has been a foundational shift in how my stomach feels, and there's nothing I can do about it. I've just got to deal with it. I look back on it now, and I think it was my gut biome. I think it was just destroyed from all those years of really horrible food, because I was like a sugar, I know it sounds cliche, but I was a sugar and carb addict. If we would go to a restaurant, everybody else would get a main course, I'd be getting a dessert to eat. That would be what I would eat. Dessert and the bread and butter. That was what I would eat. So, that was really devastating for me, because I thought, okay, what am I going to do? It's, and I do think, that was right around the time I was entering perimenopause. So I think again, hormones had a play in that, but, at any rate, my stomach has never felt the same again until I went on carnivore, and I don't feel my stomach anymore. I just don't feel it. It's a weird thing to try and describe. It's like, I'm very aware of my stomach, and not because it was fat, but because I could feel internally, it felt like, it was just made out of lead or something. I don't know. And I know one of your guests that I watched just a couple of days ago, young man, he was talking about, he had similar problems, and he was talking about the carbs being responsible, being highly sensitive to carbs. And I knew that when I look back on it, when I listen to people talk, I'm like going, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I used to go out to dinner, and if I had like, a big old hamburger and French fries and, a dessert, I would literally feel like I was drugged. I could barely get to my car. It was like someone just shot me up with a drug. And it just never occurred to me, it's like, man, every time I eat, and I knew what it was, but it never occurred to me, hey, dummy, stop eating those things, and then maybe it'll be okay. So, I just
don't worry, you're not alone in that. You're not alone.
Yeah, that's another encouraging part of watching everyone.
There's millions of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that sad though?
You went keto in July 2022.
Yep.
Moved over to carnivore in October 2022.
Yep.
When did you realize, hey, this psoriasis is getting better?
It probably took a couple of months before I started seeing some real progress. And I would show my sister, and I would say, look, doesn't it look like it's getting better? And she goes, yeah, it really does. So I noticed it pretty quickly. And it was very exciting, because I had it for 10 years already. And I was like, I'm so over this stuff. But I'm on a psoriasis Facebook page, and I just, it's one of those things where you have to look at life and be grateful for what you have, because I look at some of these poor souls and the suffering they are suffering with psoriasis, and I just go, oh Lord, I have nothing to complain about, but the doctors did want to put me on biologics, and I told them, no, that's not going to happen. Several doctors wanted to put me on statins, and I have flat out refused. And I said, put it in the chart, not to ask me again, because I'm never, ever, ever going to take a statin. So, and they're pretty accommodating that way. I've never gone to a doctor that was like a bully or, anything like that. It's like, it's your life, do what you want to do. But when I had my stomach problems and I went to the emergency room for my stomach pain, they gave me Dilaudid, which is like intravenously Dilaudid, which is like it's like a really heavy duty narcotic. Got rid of my stomach pain for a few hours. And I told my sister, I said, I see why people become drug addicts, because you don't care about anything. You just check out. It's like you're moving in slow motion. And so I was really afraid of that. And then when it happened, my knees, all the pain I was in with my knees, they gave me an opioid, a prescription, and there were 30 tablets. And those things lasted me 2 years because I was so terrified of taking them. So I only took them when the pain made me cry. And then once they were gone, I just went, you know what? I'm not going to, even if I'm managing them and not getting addicted to them, I'm not going to live on such, powerful opioids for the rest of my life. And some people do, and they do get addicted. And I've always been one of those. I'm a big rule follower, so I follow rules. And, when I hear things that I'm like buy into and I believe, I'm like, okay, I got to toe the line on that one because, not going to get addicted to that. But just so many different medications that doctors have tried to prescribe to me. And I've always been like hypersensitive to medications. So I would try a medication. I tried one called Inderal. This was 25, 30 years ago. It was because I have a arrhythmia. It developed when I was pregnant with my youngest son 39 years ago. And, the doctor said it's perfectly normal. Lots of people have this kind. It's not a kind that's going to kill you. And I just suffered with that for decades. And it was only when I started Carnivore and started taking the LMNT, which has magnesium, potassium, sodium, and just eating, the meat and the salt and the fat, I rarely have a palpitation anymore now. Usually it's if I get stressed about something, but I don't even get stressed very like I used to either. That's just kind of.
That's awesome. So about 2 months in, you notice, okay, my psoriasis is getting a bit better.
Yep.
What about the other things like your anxiety, your back pain, your depression? Was it about a similar time period?
I think those were a little quicker, a little sooner, where I started to see improvement. But 19 months in, it's like I don't even,
So what was the feeling like though at the time?
With
where you're kind of noticing that all these things are getting better.
Yeah.
And it's like, did you feel like, what have I done? Did straight away, did you know that
I knew it was the diet because
the way you're eating?
Yeah, because I'd heard so many people talk about their experience, and I was very hopeful going into it that, oh, maybe this will happen for me. But I had been dashed for decades, so I didn't want to hope for it or count on it. I just thought, Lord, if it happens, I'm going to be so happy. This is going to be fantastic. And then when I started to see, you had a guest on recently. Well, I watched her recently, and she was talking about a ganglion cyst she had on her wrist. And I went, oh yeah, I had one for 40 years. And I looked when she said that, it's gone. It's completely gone. Not even a trace of it. It was about the size of a grape. And I used to play with it. I used to roll it around, it was just a nervous habit. I'd roll the ganglion cyst around. But when she said that, I looked at my wrist and I went, oh my gosh, it's completely gone. I don't know when that happened. I have no idea when that happened. But every time I hear someone tell their story, and, there's so many points where you can really relate to someone else's story. And then there are some that are different because we're all different. We all have different histories, different bodies. But a lot of the things we have very much in common. And it just thrills me to hear someone talk about something and go, oh yeah, that's right. That's why I kept that running list that I sent you, and I alphabetized it, but that's not necessary because that's just who I am. But that's not necessarily the order in which they disappeared. I couldn't tell you that for the most part. But it was relatively quickly. And my sister and I, like I said, we're best friends, and we go out on the weekends, and we're always talking about carnivore. Always. I mean, that's like number one topic for us. And, we just marvel at what has happened to us. This is incredible. My life has literally been transformed. I feel, in the way that spiritually your life is transformed when you come to Christ in repentance and save and receive saving faith. I feel that kind of enthusiasm and mind blown for the physical transformation I've had. It just blows my mind. I can't even wrap my head around it sometimes.
Yeah. So, there will be people watching that are skeptical about this, or have thought about it but are a little bit like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So how can you explain, especially for their benefit, how are you eating on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sure. I've been doing OMAD. I've been doing like an 18/6 window, 24 window for almost immediately after I went on Carnivore. I found Jason Fung and Mindy Peltz, and so I just thought, okay, well, I'm not hungry, so I don't have, because I was worried about I'm not eating often enough, but I wouldn't be hungry. So once I got the professionals' permission that bodies, Jason Fung really explains it beautifully. Even in the age I grew up in the 60s, people weren't sitting around eating all day long. That's just not what we did. I did because I was a chubby child and I couldn't resist the sweets. But for the most part, that wasn't the normal pattern for people in the 60s. So, just realizing that I don't have to eat the food, so I'm not going to. And so I just picked the ones I love the most and what I eat most days. And I have not one time gotten tired of it. I could actually physically salivate sometimes when I'm thinking about, I'm going to cook my ribeye. I'm just, and I'm smelling it and I'm looking at it and I'm picturing it because I like a medium. I like pink inside. And I'm just in my mind, I'm going, oh, how does this still taste so good? I start slicing it up in that first bite. Did you ever see, I think it was an American cartoon. It was Quick Draw McDraw. And he had, did you see
remember it? Quick Draw McGraw.
Yeah. Precious Pup. And every time he'd give Precious Pup a treat, he would, and he would raise in the air and he would float down to the air because it was just ecstasy for him to eat those treats. And I've just kind of pictured that, I can't literally do it, of course, but in my mind, I'm just like, oh, floating on air going, oh my gosh, this is so good. How is this still so good? But it is, So most days I eat a ribeye. I eat quite frequently 4 quarter-pound patties with 2 slices of cheddar cheese or Gouda or Havarti. I don't eat lots of cheese, so I haven't had any like bad reactions or anything like that. I make sure, like Laura Spath calls it, a condiment. I make sure that it's not a lot, but it just adds so much to the burgers for me. And then my other favorite is the Power Bowl from Carrie's channel, the ribeye, bacon, scrambled eggs, and hamburger, ground beef, and you just you mix all that in and you add some butter into it. And oh my gosh, it's like heaven. It is so good. And then when I'm really hungry, I might eat 2 meals, and I always eat bacon and eggs for breakfast. If I know it's going to be a 2-meal day, and that's not very often, but I know when it's a 2-meal day. I'll tell my sister, oh my gosh, I've got to eat breakfast today. She's the same way. But so I'm mostly OMAD, but I'll eat a second meal from time to time. Yeah.
So I mean, that tells me basically you're responding to your body's signals, right?
Oh, yes.
So you don't have a particular plan. It's just like, well, if I feel like I need to eat 2 meals a day, then I'm going to do it.
Yes. Yeah. And some days I wake up and I'm like going, oh, today's a hamburger patty and cheese day. And other days I'll wake up and go, oh, it's a ribeye day, or it's a Power Bowl day. I just intuitively know what I want to eat that day, and I eat and I do it, but yeah, it's like and I know this has been an analogy a lot of people have used, but it's like my signals were broken. They were turned off, and Carnivore has just kind of turned up the volume on them, and now I can hear them, which is amazing because I don't crave the bad stuff anymore. Haven't for a long, long time. Don't even want it. And it's not like I'm grudgingly eating these meats every day going, well, got to do it because it's good for my body. And it's not that at all. I'm just absolutely thrilled eating meat every day. So, and that some people find that hard to believe. I've had a friend go, oh, you need fiber, you need vegetables, the same old arguments. And I said, no, I really don't. I get everything I need from meat, and I am in better health. I am happier. I am, by every measurement, I have gone far and above where I was 19 months ago. So for me, that's all I need. That's all I need to know.
So how would you recommend someone get started with carnivore?
Well, I know you've talked about this before, and I'm an all or nothing gal, which is why I just dove right into it and had the 4 weeks of keto flu and just dumping all those carbs and sugar that I'd been eating for 55 years, So if you go into it, it's almost like boot camp. If you go into it knowing I'm going to feel really, really bad before I start to feel better, but you're willing to, because I couldn't do cut back on the sugar or eliminate the sugar and then 2 weeks later eliminate the carb. That would have never worked for me, not in a million years. So I knew I had to be all in or not at all. And that's why at the end of 4 weeks, I told my sister, I don't know if I can do this, but I just knew there was no going back. I had to power through it. And thank goodness, the following week, which was week 5, it just was just an instant switch. I felt amazing. I felt so good. And I thought, okay, my body's finally done purging 55 years of junk. So if you're prepared and you're willing to do that, then I would say go all in and just get it done. But some people can moderate and some people can do, like, I'm an abstainer. There is nothing in my house that I can't eat. It's mostly meat. I don't have anything. My pantry has my pet supplies. I don't use a pantry for anything but pet supplies and my can opener and stuff like that. But I haven't really used that because I don't really eat things out of a can. So, all my kitchen space, which I had like an 8-foot island put in, all these drawers. And, this was 2.5 years ago. And I thought, okay, I'm going to really use this kitchen. And it was like 7 months into it. I'm going, yeah, well, maybe not, but that's okay. I can use it for other things. And, so I just eat meat. I just have the meat. My refrigerator is full of meat and eggs, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. That's literally what I keep in stock.
I feel, that sounds like, the kitchen of a healthy person where everything is perishable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, that's how my grandmother lived. They were probably the last generation, the Depression era generation that actually ate whole foods and foods that they purchased every couple of days because they had to eat it rather than store it, and didn't have all the preservatives and box food. I call them faux food. It's not even real food. It's just it's pretend food, that really is so bad for you. But at any rate, yeah, that's my kitchen is a total carnivore kitchen. And when we go out to eat, we go out as a family on Sunday after church, and there's a steakhouse here called Longhorns. And we go to Longhorns and I get a ribeye that's just cooked to perfection. We will splurge on those days because we don't do it every single week because it's a little pricey, but we will splurge on and have the side salad, which, has lettuce, tomato, cucumber, and some shredded cheese on it. So it's not like a big off track kind of thing. But we also have their cheddar cheese stuffed mushrooms with Parmesan cheddar stuffed mushrooms that are delicious. And I don't want to know if there's anything bad in those because they're so good. And I don't react to them. So I'm like, okay, as long as I'm not having a bad reaction to them, the once in a while that I do eat them, I'm going to keep eating them. So that makes going out a real treat. But like I said, we don't do that very often, but yeah. So
nice. So Sheryl, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in contact?
I did put my email in the title so you can share that. I'm not sure how, if you put that in the notes or whatever, but yeah. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm one of those people that just stumbled around trying to find information and figuring out what to do. And I feel like God really guided me to the right people, because I could have very easily wound up on a vegan channel. I mean, probably not, because I love meat. So I don't think I ever was in danger of being a vegan. But yeah, if someone wants to reach out and chat, or, because all my Facebook groups, I have like three carnivore groups, and they're all for women over 60. So we're all, kind of dealing with the same things. And I posted my before and after pictures a few weeks, and, have people asking, oh, what do you eat every day? And I don't mind telling people what I eat every day, but you have to find what works for you. And most of those meats will work for people.
Nice. So yeah, I'll include your email address below.
Great.
Sheryl, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. I just, I know I'm just adding a voice to the many, many people have said this, but you are just my favorite carnivore channel, even above all of the really good information, Sean Baker and Anthony Chafee and Ken Berry. I love those channels, but your channel really, every time I watch it, and like I said, I watch it every single night after I'm done working, that you're the first channel I click on. I love hearing other people's stories of healing. And it's just because everyone's just as excited about it. So I just love that. So thank you so much for being a part of that voice.